soon as I made the first line, I knew for sure that that was those people back in those days were using. The thing is that to make those brushes, and nowadays there is over 500 potters in the village of Mata Ortiz. They're all working, they're all painting and everything, so don't be surprised if you see some bald head kids in town, okay? To get there, okay? So back in those days, 40 years ago, this road wasn't here either, so it used to take him a long time to go all the way to Casas Grandes on his burro to sell his pots. Well, we don't know, and he even doesn't know how. No. So, anyway, Spencer McAllen asked Juan Quesada to start making some replicas for himself, and he started, bringing them to the States and putting them in dollars a pot. It's now, if you want a Juan Quesada's, okay, you have to get rid of from $6,000 to maybe $10,000 or $12,000 for a pot. Okay, they're huge pots, great quality. Village of Mata Ortiz. Okay, probably 20 of his relatives, daughters and sons, children and grandchildren, even grandchildren right now. The best prices. Once they go across to the United States or any other country in the world, the price can go up at least. As you have, amigo, do not hesitate.
Is Jose Quesada still alive?
Juan Quesada is still alive. Yes, he is. He's still working. Oh yeah, he's still working. Ay, señor Hatch. ¿Cómo está usted? Muy bien, gracias a Dios también.
Buenos dias. Welcome to Colonia Juarez. Ugh, apologize for my appearance. I usually get dressed up a little bit here, but I got busy today. Dry time of the year, but this is the driest. If we're lucky, we'll start getting some rains here by sometime this month. They really settle in July, August are our 2 months we get most of our rain. We'll point out some of the old homes that the early settlers built, and then we'll answer some questions as to exactly where they came from, how they got here. Coming up here on the left is one of the example of the old brick 2-story homes, type of homes they built in the early days. The style, I guess, they brought with them from back east. We'll see some better examples up ahead here. Just beyond our little gift shop here on the right, the apple barrel instead of the cracker barrel. This has been renovated. They're asking if maybe we could raise the shades over on that side, please. Thank you. In the early days, this served as the tithing office. It's now community because the old timer said if you haven't been kissed on a swing bridge, you haven't been kissed properly. Yeah, someone on one of these groups said we called it the drive-in theater. Here's one of our style homes up there on the back street on your right. Our public square we just passed here with the old cottonwood trees, have been around for a while. This is the local Catholic church, Norman. This is our little Walmart center here on the left. Not very busy right now. Resist your urge to go shopping here. And we're going to take our turn to cross the bridge here. It looks like it's only one vehicle at a time. This is the old, we call the wagon bridge. It was the first bridge the settlers built. Still the same old pillars. Used to have wooden planks over it when I was a kid. Now it's concrete. We actually do have another bridge in town now, and it's even 2-lane, but this one's more exciting. This is the Piedras Verdes River, and it was clear full of willows and pretty and green, and they've cleaned it out here. They're getting ready for the flood season because with all the growth in there, they did build their own brick. They had to be totally self-sufficient. And originally these homes would have wooden shingles on them. Of course, now most of the kids out playing recess time or something. This is a private community elementary school. And the kids here from kindergarten on have half a day in English and half a day in Spanish. There are also public schools in town.
You have to pay tuition.
Yes, they do pay tuition here. And up ahead is what we call the academy, and it's grades 7 through 12. In Mexico, your 7, 8, 9 is secundaria, your 10, 11, 12 preparatoria. This school was founded in 1897. And of the approximately 450 students that attend, about 85% are native Spanish-speaking students. See the date on the old building, 1904? Right now, there are not as many buses as there usually are because attend the academy. It is still run by the church education system, but about 25%, about $800 a year tuition. The non-members a little over twice that amount, which is still heavily subsidized. The reason our temple here was built in 99, so it's been around here for about 7 or 8 years now. We were glad to get it. Prior to that, our nearest temple was Mesa, Arizona, so it saves us about a 7-hour drive. The marble comes from the Monterrey area, a little further south in Mexico. This was the first of the new style small temples that they started building around the world. We'll turn around here in the parking lot, then park out front where you can look over town and get out and take some pictures if you like. As we turn around here, you see some nice homes on the hillsides, like communities you come from. Probably those with the money like to build on the hills and look down on the rest, don't they?
Yes.
And you know, most of these homes belong to families by the surname Romney. That might ring a bell with some of you.
Romney.
Ex-governor George Romney, Mitt's father, was born here in the colonies. Left when he was about 5 years old at the time of the revolution. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. The fact that he was also candidate for president, remember, and the fact that he was born in Mexico wasn't a problem because he was born abroad of U.S. citizen parents. But someone told me that the Constitution says they have to be born in the U.S. So anyway, he never got that far. It was something he said. Anyone remember what he said? It was during the Vietnam area. He went over, visited, and came back, said he'd been brainwashed. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
That was it. Okay, so. Earliest varieties, and they go through up into October, so we harvest peaches almost 6 months out of the year. A lot of varieties of peaches. Yes. Yeah, we're in April right now.
Oh,
Yeah, we don't. That's what I'm doing mainly now. I just got back from where you people are headed, the Copper Canyon trip. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just give a brief overview of a little bit of the history, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Some of you may be a little bit familiar with the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It was founded in 1830 in New York State, then they moved westward into Ohio, from there on into Illinois and Missouri. Then following the death of the founder, Joseph Smith, I remember, your history books, Brigham Young brought them out west into the Salt Lake Basin. And they settled many areas in the western United States. Some even went up into Alberta Province, Canada. Now those who ended up here, for the most part, came across the plains. They came down into southern Utah, settled areas like Cedar City, St. George, on into Arizona along the Gila and the Salt River, and eventually here into Mexico. Now the question always arises, why Mexico? Two main reasons. One was they wanted to introduce the church into Mexico. From the time the church was restored, they send missionaries to different countries. The first one's the British Isles. In fact, most of our ancestors actually joined the church in the early days in the British Isles and took that trek like thousands did across the ocean and across the plains, the Salt Lake area, and eventually on down here. So the church has been quite successful in Mexico. There are close to 1.5 million members in the country now. So outside of the United States, it's the largest population, and it's the largest denomination in Mexico outside of the predominant Catholic religion. The other reason they came into Mexico had to do with what was going on in Utah in the late 1800s. They were trying to obtain statehood, and there was the polygamy issue there at that time. Congress enacted some laws, the Edmunds Law and the Edmunds-Tucker Law, prohibiting the practice of polygamy. And then the church leaders issued in 1890 the manifesto discontinuing the practice of polygamy as a church. Now you're all aware of the break-off fundamentalist groups that still practice polygamy, and you read about them in the news, and they like to associate themselves or use the word Mormon a lot of times, but for the mainstream church from 1890 to the present, the quickest way to lose your membership would be to delve into polygamy. Now, at that time, those who had plural families in the Utah area had about 3 choices. They could go to prison, they could go into hiding, or they could go to Canada or Mexico. Some of them opted for option number 3. However, not all those who went to Canada or who ended up down here had practiced polygamy, but many did. But the practice was also discontinued worldwide as a church when that manifesto was issued in 1890. We have our own little fundamentalist group about 50 miles south of here, the LeBaron family, that still practice polygamy, kind of tied in with some of those groups up there on the Utah-Arizona border. So those were probably the 2 fundamental reasons why they came to Mexico. They first settled about 2 miles south of here. You'll pass that in a few minutes on your way to Mata Ortiz. You'll notice that the valley down there is a lot wider and flatter. And they were preparing the land for their crops and digging their irrigation ditches when they were informed they were on the wrong tract of land. What they had purchased was up in this narrow rocky valley. And I kind of suspect it may have been a bait and switch situation. They may have shown them that originally, and then once they got them here and said, that's too good for them, let's put them up there. No one wants that, They got up here, there was really no room for row crops, so they began planting orchards on the hillsides, which has been the mainstay of the economy ever since. And the fruit business has been a good business. The signs of prosperity you see here, mainly from the fruit business and cattle business. However, of late, the cattle business has not been very good because of the drought cycle we've been going through, like it's been happening in the southwestern United States. In fact, they estimated 2 or 3 years ago that the cattle herd here in the state of Chihuahua was down about 30% of what it was at its peak. So it's been very tough. The fruit business was actually at its very best in the 70s and 80s when we had the nice market here in Mexico pretty much to ourselves. But then NAFTA came in. Everyone complains about that, don't they? Now we have to share our fine market with those California peaches and Washington apples. And it makes it a little more competitive, but it's still a good business. We could export our fruit, but actually there's a better price and market for it here in Mexico. So all of our fruit is sold here in Mexico. The first group arrived, as I mentioned, in 1885. They continued to arrive up until 1912, and at that time the revolution had broken out in Mexico, and things became quite unstable. The church leaders felt it was unsafe for the members to be here for a while, so they all gathered at the old train station in Mata Ortiz, that you will see in a few minutes, and boarded the train for El Paso. They were in hopes that it would just be a matter of days or weeks they could come back. They just took what they could take with them. Most of them never did come back. An example would have been George Romney's immediate family never returned. Some of his extended family did. So at that time, they had established 8 main settlements and some smaller communities, mainly here in the state of Chihuahua, a couple over in the state of Sonora. They estimate there was a total, prior to when they left the revolution, probably a total of near 4,000 immigrants who come in from the U.S. and settled here in Mexico, Chihuahua and Sonora. Of those 4,000, probably at the